We've gone through the comment section in every one of our videos and pulled out the most frequently asked questions by our viewers. And in this video, we're going to answer them all. Now, these are real questions from real viewers doing their own self-builds, comparing vans and trying to avoid expensive mistakes. And there's one question that comes up after every video. In this video, we're going to answer it at the very end. What's the height difference between the VW Crafter and the Mercedes Sprinter? Well, with the VW Crafter, you get two different internal heights depending on whether it's a front-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive. Now, with the all-wheel drive, the floor level lifts by about 103 millimeters, and that then drops the height down to just over 6 feet inside. Now, that's without an internal floor and without an internal ceiling. Moving on to layouts. Now, we get an awful lot of questions about specific builds. Somebody had asked what would be lost if they did a medium wheelbase version, what would have to be sacrificed. So in this kind of layout here, we would sacrifice the tall fridge and we'd replace it with a smaller under-counter fridge. Now, what you're going to lose in that is you're going to lose some of the storage area because you've got this whole end of the kitchen which you don't have storage. You're only going to have storage cupboards and drawers in this area here. So you're losing quite a bit of storage space in the kitchen. Traditionally, we would then take a little bit of space from the bathroom, so you'd have a slightly smaller bathroom area. We wouldn't have such a big basin in there. We'd replace it with something else. Or a lot of customers tend not to have a basin in a medium wheelbase because you do just have your sink just across the way out here. We get tons of questions about electrics. Can I ask, in your opinion, is a 13 amp switched fuse okay to use rather than a consumer unit? The answer to that is no. It's not as safe because if there's an earth leakage, then the earth can contact the live wire, and it means that everything in your vehicle that was connected to something metal would then become live, creating a very dangerous situation. So no, you're definitely better to have a proper consumer unit with proper breakers set for your electrics. This person says, personally, I like to have all my electrics accessible. It makes it easier for repairs. Now, I completely understand that, and we try and express in our videos that we like to bury our cables into the panel work of the van, but that is the reason that we make the panels removable so that you can access them. And what we always do as well, we don't put connections in behind the panel work unless they are accessible by just unscrewing an appliance. So likes of a USB, if the USB had stopped working and you need to replace it, you can simply unscrew that USB, pull it out, and there will be connectors. You can just dislocate it from the back. However, the wires, we'll never put joins in the cables in the panels unless they're easily accessible. All of our connections and anything that you need to gain access to retrofit anything or to service anything would always be accessible and inside the vehicle. It's just you also don't really need the bulk of your full wiring harness or your plumbing for that matter run through the vehicle. We tend to hide all of that in the panel work as well. What wire strippers are we using for 3-core cable? We don't actually have a good set of wire strippers for 3-core cable. We've yet to find a good set, so usually just use a good set of side cutters, and to be honest, usually just a Stanley blade without the sheath, and just taking our time and doing it carefully. This here is hands down the most frequently asked question we get regarding electrics. It's how long do the batteries last off-grid? And it's one of these unanswerable questions. It's like, how long's a piece of string? Because it depends on so many different factors. It's what time of year is it? Are you in your van a lot or out your van a lot? Are you cooking inside? Are you cooking outside? How many electronics have you brought with you? So your battery will last a completely different amount of time depending on the holiday you're having. We can give rough parameters based on the size of your battery, on the charging appliances that you've got, but yeah, very, very difficult to answer. So usually we'll gain information from you about what you're looking for your van to do, and we'll try and build an electronic system round about that so that it's got more than what you're looking for it to do, so that you're never going to be disappointed from it. Electrics is always a huge one, but another category that comes up constantly is water heating and winterizing your van. One of the questions we've been asked is, do they do a fresh/grey water tank combination for a VW Crafter? And the answer is yes, they do. This is one that we've had made. So I don't know if you can get an off-the-shelf product, but there's plenty of companies out there that build bespoke tanks. We've had this one made here, which has got a fresh and a grey water tank. Now, it's essentially two tanks that are welded together. It's one big box, and they put a rigid wall all the way down the middle so that the two can never combine. Now, this one's designed to sit into the spare wheel section of the vehicle. You'll see that it's got this score up the back. That will be, so the back doors will be here, the front of the van will be up this side. That's just to give you the ground clearance off the back of the tank. So if you're having a spare wheel carrier on the back of the van, this will then take up that section at the back. It also helps distribute the weight. So in these vehicles, because there is quite a large distance between the wheel span of the van, a lot of the weight is focused above the front axle, whereas this will help move some of that weight across to over the top of the back axle. I'm planning an Arctic expedition and not sure what water tanks to use. Is it possible to winterize underslung tanks for extreme cold, or does the fresh need to be kept inside? If you're going very, very cold up into the Arctic, then an internal freshwater tank would probably be a lot easier. You certainly can winterize them, as we've just discussed with this tank. Having the heat pad down to -40 certainly helps. Another thing you can do is add the tank blankets. Now, just like a duvet on a bed, it's not going to provide any warmth, but what it's going to do is once the temperature is in the tank, it's going to help maintain it and stop it from reverting back to cold for a much longer period of time. Now, we use this liner. It's just a thermal liner. It's got a foil top, so it will reflect temperature. Any of the joins that we put onto it there, we also cover with foil tape, just to try and keep some of that heat in as well. This tank's actually having a probe because it's not got a big enough surface area for a pad, but this one here will have a bigger pad, which is a lot more efficient. The probes are only good probably down to about -15, -20, whereas the pads are good down to about -40, so much more efficient for those Arctic expeditions and very cold climates. Do you use underfloor heating as well? Now, it's not something we've done a lot of in the past, but it's certainly something that we've got booked in for a few vans coming up. So we're moving our heating systems from a hot air blown system over to a hydronic system, which means that it'll be hit by water pipes and radiators rather than hot air ducts. Another big category that's really common with self-builders is the furniture, the materials and how everything's put together. The worktop system you use seems to have a void within its thickness. I'm just wondering what the reasoning is. Well, it's quite a keen observation. So the worktop that we use has a skirt round about it. It's about that thick and it makes the material look like it's really thick when in actual fact the top layer is only 6 mil. It's just to give the illusion of it being completely solid, but in reality the weight would be far too much. Now below that, before our units start, there is an area about that deep. That's essential though, because in our worktop slides and we have our induction hob in there. The induction hob is a glass plate that sits on the top, but below that is the thickness of the hob. Now for that to slide, it needs to have access, it needs to have that void for it to be able to move in between. It also allows us to have a cable run so that they don't get tangled up when the worktop slides open and slides closed. What adhesive do we use in our edge bander? Now, edge banding, for those that don't know, is when you apply an edging strip like this onto the edge of the furniture rather than a knock-on trim. It gives a kind of nicer, neater finish, and this needs to be glued onto the surface. If it's done properly, it'll last a long time. This is an ABS 1mm edge band. We then trim it flush, nice and fit, and it gives you the same colour all the way around rather than a visible edge. We use hot melt glue. This is a polyurethane glue. It's granular, so it comes in these little beads. You pour it into the vessel on the edge bander, and then it heats it up into a liquid into the little glue pot. And then when the ABS edging passes through, it coats it with a covering of that glue, and then it sticks it straight onto the wood as we pass it through. It only takes a matter of seconds for it to dry, and it dries very hard. Now, it's a really high temperature glue, so it's good to about 200 degrees. It means when the sun's baking in your windows and heating up the tin roof of your van, the furniture that's closest to that isn't going to delaminate with the edging. It's going to stand the test of time. Where do you get your air ply from? Now, air ply, if you're not familiar with it, is a furniture board. It's 15mm and it's got an XPS foam core. So it's a sandwich panel board. Essentially, you've got about 4mm of wood either side, and then about a 7 or 8mm strip of XPS foam inside. So it just takes a lot of the weight out. It's all glued, laminated together. So it's a really good, rigid product, but yeah, light as a feather. We get it from a few different suppliers. Companies like Grassroots, Morland, they have their own branding for it. It's not called air ply, but it does a very similar job. There's lots of different companies that sell it out there. It usually ranges from about £135 to about £175 for an 8x4 sheet, and it can save you an awful lot of weight in your van. The difficulty with it is that you can't use traditional jointing techniques with it, so that's not an option for this because you don't have a solid core for you to put the screw through. It wouldn't have any sort of hold. You also, if you're screwing into it, you've only got that 4mm of ply that you're screwing into because the centre isn't solid. So you tend to have to use it either glued together or you can CNC little plastic inserts which you can then screw into. We tend to use it for our doors where it's a little bit easier, keeps a lot of the weight down, and we don't tend to use it for structural elements in the furniture for obvious reasons because it's not a solid board. Is our XPS poplar flooring something that we have made for us, or is it an off-the-shelf product? Now it's very similar to the wood that we just looked at in the workshop. It has an XPS foam layer centre, and then it's got two poplar plywood outsides to it. It's a little bit thicker, so it's about 18mm thick. It's an off-the-shelf product. We buy it from Evo Motion. It actually comes already cut to the size of the van. It is something you can make yourself. You can laminate it up yourself. You can also buy in the sheets. However, it's not really cost effective to do so. We've looked at it in the past. So we buy it from those guys. You can get it for different van models. It saves you an awful lot of time. It's a great insulator for the floor. The other question we get asked is it good enough for solid winter travel down to very low temperatures? You can go more, you can insulate more into the floor if you wanted to. We don't, because the majority of vans don't go into Arctic exploration. We do have a few coming up this year that do, and we have had sort of a few in the past, in which case we will do further insulation into the floor below this. But for most people's travel, to be honest, this is going to be more than sufficient. It's going to keep your van nice and toasty, and really the heating is going to be more about the heating system itself rather than the thickness of the foam inside, because as we mentioned before, insulation helps maintain the heat. It doesn't actually put the heat into the vehicle. But yeah, very, very effective and very important, but you don't want to build this up too much with extra insulation underneath, otherwise you're going to be losing that valuable head height inside the van. Why don't you use PIR or Celotex board in the larger areas in the van for insulation? We've done it in the past. We did it once and we kind of vowed we'd never do it again because it gave off an awful lot of squeaks. If it rubs anywhere, it's a very high pitched, very annoying squeak. We don't use the spray foam insulation either for that same reason. I know that a lot of people do, and so it might be a good effective way of insulating the van. Certainly in the floor, it's very chunky and you're going to lose an awful lot of space. In the walls, it might be good. To me, I know that a van flexes as it travels along the road, and I don't want to go and build in a full conversion and then run the risk of that squeak appearing as soon as I get out onto the bumpy roads. A big subject that keeps on coming up is weight. Everyone wants to know about the weight of these vehicles. And one of the biggest questions is, can this still be under 3.5 tons? The answer is yes. So this is a 4x4 and this is just under the 3.5 ton mark. You're not going to have an awful lot of payload left over, and so this will begin up-plated. But for the front wheel drive MAN-TGE, we can certainly bring that in with enough payload to keep you under the 3.5 tons. And it all comes down to how much extra stuff you're going to put onto the vehicle, especially externally with spare wheel carriers, ladders, roof racks, that sort of stuff. They're going to add on to the weight. But yeah, for the standard build, we can certainly do it under 3.5 ton. How much does the van weigh before it was converted? Well, these vehicles here, they're around about 2.5 ton, give or take, for the model and for the drivetrain. That gives you about a ton load of payload on it. And now for the most emotional category of all, money, money, money. It's a big question we always get asked. One of our commenters asked, I've only got a budget of max 17K, I guess I'm screwed. Absolutely not. I bought my second, I think, camper van for about £600 and lived in it for 3 months. And it was some of the happiest times I had in my younger days. And it was very, very basic. It was a built-in camper, but it was at the end of its life, but it saw me throughout that whole time. The camper van industry is set for people with tiny budgets and also set for people with massive budgets. It's like going car shopping and looking at a supercar and thinking, well, I can't afford that, so I can't afford anything. You can build it yourself, you can buy second-hand parts, and you can put it all together with your budget to suit your needs. And that's the beauty of this industry. If you get cash to burn, you can throw it at all the gadgets and all the fancy things you can have. And if you've got very little money, you can make do with what you have and go out on the open road and really enjoy it and get the max that you can for what you've got available to you. And the question that everybody always wants answered, how much do our builds cost? Well, our builds on average are between 150 and 200k, and we're very aware that that's a major expense and that not every camper van is going to cost that. We spent years getting to that level, and we started off by building vans with a much lower budget, and we've not been taught by MD as we've went, we've just had to learn along the way. There was no YouTube for us in the beginning. So that's why we've created this channel really, is to try and pass on the tips and tricks that we've got that can maybe help you save some money and help you save a whole load of time when it comes to building your own vans, so that you end up with the van that you want to take you on the adventures that you want to go on. So thanks very much for watching. That's all we've got time for this week. So if you want to see more van related content like this, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.